Hi everybody, how are you all? I hope you all are fine and you're enjoying science lectures. I'm Emuna Sayyed, your science teacher, and today I'm going to present lesson number 2 of week 3. Today we will learn unit 3, the human transport system, and the topics under discussion are the blood circulation, arteries, veins, and capillaries. So first of all, recall our previous lesson before jumping into the main contents of today's lesson. So in the previous lectures, we have talked about the blood, that is its body fluid. It's a living tissue. It consists of the living part and the solid part. The living part contains the nutrients, water, waste, and other proteins, whereas the solid part includes three types of cells. Okay, and we have also discussed the different types of blood cells, which includes the red blood cells, which carry oxygen, white blood cells, whose basic function is to fight against germs, and platelets, whose function is to provide or help in the formation of clot. And plasma, as I've told you, it's a liquid part of the blood which contain different nutrients, waste, water, and salts and different proteins as well. Then we discuss different type of transport diseases, which includes anemia, hemophilia, varicose vein, leaking of heart valves, thrombosis, and finally the most dangerous one, heart failure. So today's lesson learning objectives are the blood circulation and arteries, veins, and capillaries. So let's start with warm-up activity. Is blood a living tissue? Well, the answer is quite simple, and I have told you earlier in your previous class as well and today's class as well. So I just started my lecture explaining these terms. Well, very good. Yes, blood is a living tissue which contains important nutrients that is necessary for every cell of the body. Talking about the cardiovascular system, which includes heart, the main organ. It consists of heart, lungs, and blood vessels. And do you know that cardiovascular system consists of two types of circulation, which includes the pulmonary circulation and systematic circulation. So whenever you see something in a blue color in my presentation, it means I have highlighted it with blue color because it means with the oxygen deficient blood. They are dealing with oxygen deficient blood, the blood that has low level of oxygen. And whenever there is something marked red, it means they are dealing with the high oxygen blood or oxygen rich blood. So just for your ease or for your better understanding, I have choose this color code. Blue is for oxygen deficiency and red is for oxygen rich blood. First of all, we will discuss the pulmonary circulation. So as I've told you, the cardiovascular system consists of two types of circulation, which include the pulmonary circulation and systematic circulation. So pulmonary circulation starts with the right side of the heart, okay? And it carries deoxygenated blood. So deoxygenated blood means the blood that has less oxygen. So that's why it is colored in blue. The carriage of oxygen depleted blood or oxygen deficient blood away from the heart to the lungs via the pulmonary artery and the return of the oxygen rich. Look, now I'm talking about the oxygen rich blood, so that's why now it is in red color to the heart via pulmonary vein. And again, the term, as I have cleared you all, that with the exception of all veins that carry blood away from the heart, pulmonary artery is acting like a vein and pulmonary vein is acting like an artery here. Okay, so the superior and inferior vena cava carry oxygen depleted blood to the relaxed right atrium of the heart. So as we have discussed, the cycle starts from the right side and ends up at the left side of the heart. So the right atrium contracts and blood travels through the tricuspid valve into the relaxed right ventricle. When the right ventricle contracts, the blood will be pumped through the pulmonary valve into pulmonary artery to the lungs. And here, the exchange occurs in the lungs, and carbon dioxide is being released and oxygen is absorbed for the cells. And then the blood that is rich in oxygen will be transferred to every part of the body. So talking about the systematic circulation, as the right side cycle is completed here, and now the systematic circulation will be started, which occurs at the left side of the heart, and it always carry oxygenated bloods. That's why it is in red color. So the carriage of oxygen-rich blood away from the heart to the body, and return of the oxygen-deficient blood back to the heart. While the oxygen-rich blood travels from lungs, as we have discussed at the very start of our chapter, that certain body parts has been adapted for different functions, like lungs has been adapted to absorb air and then add up oxygen into the blood. Okay, so oxygen-rich blood travels from lungs where the pulmonary veins to the left atrium. However, the left atrium contracts and the blood will flow through the valve. So valve is basically, you can say, a sort of gate which only allows the blood flow in one direction and prevents the wrong flow of blood, and then they will allow the movement of blood into the relaxed left ventricle. So the strong left ventricle, here is another point, that why the reason why the left ventricle is stronger than the right one. So here is an important point or important function behind it. I'll tell you later. So there is a reason that why strong left ventricle and then the right ventricle. So this is very important. This question might come in examination, that the examiner may ask you like why the left ventricle muscles are stronger than the right ones. Okay. So the aorta, that is the biggest artery, carries the blood to the organs of the body. Here you can see the diagram which is showing the pulmonary circulation occurring at the right side and the systematic circulation which is taking place at the left side, and that's how the circulation or the blood flow goes on. Before discussing further things, let me explain you the reason that why the left ventricle is stronger than the right one. The reason is the left ventricle that is pumping blood all around the body into systematic circle, okay, into systematic circulation. So the blood that is pumped from left ventricle goes to your ears, down to your toes, up to your brain, absolutely everywhere around the body. So it needs to generate a fairly high pumping pressure with large muscular mass of the left side ventricle, whereas the blood that has been transported from by the right ventricle is just towards the lungs, which is at shortest distance. So that's why the left ventricle is thicker, okay, and the right ventricle has a thin muscular wall. And the reason I have just cleared you why this is so, and this is an important question, and examiner might ask you about this. So whereas we can see that the right ventricle is only pumping blood to the lungs, so there is no S4 to pump the blood, so as the pressure doesn't have to be as high as the amount of muscular mass uh, that is required is also less because it doesn't need to create much pressure to transport blood at far distances like the left ventricle is doing. So that's the reason why this is so. So the key thing about the heart is about its four chambers, which you can see here, the two upper chambers and the two lower chambers. The upper chambers includes the right atrium and the left atrium, okay, and the right ventricle and the left ventricle. So these are the key things that you should know, or these are the basic anatomical things you should know or understand about the heart or the circulatory system. So first of all, you should also get to know about the arteries. So we have discussed these things earlier. So now, for now, I'm just going to go over the basic things. Okay. So here you can see the superior vena cava and the inferior vena cava, which is draining blood into your right atrium. So we have our tricuspid valve here, and which will allow the movement of blood through the right atrium towards the right ventricle. So the cycles on goes on. When the blood needs to pass through the pulmonary artery, in its way there is a pulmonary valve which allows the movement of blood towards the pulmonary artery, and that's how the exchange will occur here. And after the gaseous exchange, the carbon dioxide will be taken out of the body, and the oxygen will be absorbed into the blood, and the blood will then pass on towards every part of the cell. Okay, so this is how the circulation is going on. Here you can see the simple diagram just to make it easy for you to understand the flow of blood or the blood circulation. So the blood is coming from the superior vena cava and then inferior vena cava into the right atrium, and from right atrium it contracts and it will pass on to the blood towards the right ventricle. But in between their way there is a tricuspid valve which allows the movement of blood towards the right ventricle. And when the blood from here needs to be transferred towards the pulmonary artery, here is a pulmonary valve in between which will allow the flow of blood from the right ventricle towards the pulmonary artery. So the as you can see, the all blocks starting from right here, they all are blue in color. So as I told you earlier, that the blood circulation starts from the right side and then ends up at the left side. Why this is so? Because when we receive the blood, it is at the right atrium, it is deoxygenated, it doesn't have enough oxygen. So when it will be passed on from the lungs towards the left atrium, now the blood is oxygen rich. You can see the red block, and then left atrium will pass on the blood towards the left ventricle, and finally the blood will move towards the largest artery, that is the aorta, and aorta will transfer the blood towards the rest parts of the body, and each part of the body and each cell of the body will get its nourishment or its nutrients, and this is how the circulation of blood through the heart occurs, right? Now talking about the blood vessels, which includes arteries, veins and capillaries, let's have a look. So basic function, talking generally about the blood vessels, so they have function in distribution of blood, exchange of material with the tissues, and return of the blood to the heart. So this is the basic function of blood vessels. Now let's discuss each of them in detail. So if we talk about the structure, so all of them have the basic structure, that the three layers surrounding a hollow lumen. Lumen is basically a space, okay, a hollow space. Here you can see their structure in details, talking about the artery. Look, the lumen of the artery is small and they are having smooth muscles, thick elastic muscles and endothelium. Same is the case with the vein, but here the large lumen. The lumen is large and valves are also present here. So there are some of the differences that you need to remember. And if we talk about the capillaries, they have very thin wall because the exchange of gases occur here, so their walls need to be very thin. and there is a very tiny lumen here. So there are three types of blood vessels, which includes the arteries, veins, and capillaries. Whereas all arteries carry blood away from the heart except pulmonary artery. I have used this word so many times just to make sure that you understand that all arteries carry blood away from the heart except pulmonary artery. Same is the case is here, like all veins carry blood towards the heart except pulmonary veins. And capillaries is the most important point or important part of the of every system of a cardiovascular system because it is the main site of exchange of gases or materials. So this is a column just to make it simplified or easy for you. I put all these properties or their functions in a column. If we talk about the arteries, all arteries carry blood from the heart except pulmonary artery. All arteries have thick walls of the muscle and elastic fibers. They have valves are present only where arteries leave the blood. Okay, to ensure that okay the blood is going in the in proper direction. Blood flows in pulses, blood is under high pressure, and blood is bright red and contains oxygen. So in our previous lesson, we have discussed that why blood is red in color. This is due to the heme units that are present in the hemoglobin. Hemoglobin is a very important protein that help red blood cells in carrying oxygen. So blood is bright red and contain oxygen except in the pulmonary artery because we have discussed so many times that pulmonary artery is the only artery that acts like a pulmonary vein that will act like a vein. Okay, so veins always carry deoxygenated blood. So that's why all arteries have bright red color blood except pulmonary artery. So if we talk about the capillaries, they link arteries to veins and their walls are just one cell thick. And they have no walls. Blood flows steadily, means blood can easily or smoothly flow through the capillaries. Blood pressure might changes and blood is losing oxygen and gaining carbon dioxide. So what happens? The exchange of gases takes place over here. The blood it will be absorbed in the oxygen will be absorbed in the blood and carbon dioxide will be removed or expelled out. So talking about the veins, which have walls as well, they carry blood to the heart and they have fairly thick walls which contain some elastic fibers. And walls are also found in the long veins of the arm and legs. Here also the blood flows steadily. Only the blood flows in pulses occur in arteries. In veins, the blood is dull red, not bright red. The blood is dull red and they contain very little oxygen except in the pulmonary vein. Why except in the pulmonary vein? Because only the pulmonary vein is the vein that will act like an artery. So the function of an artery is to carry blood away from the heart to every part of the body. Why this is so? Because all arteries always carry the blood that is high in oxygen. Okay, so the blood is under low pressure. Okay, so dear students, there is in your assignment. You need to read Unit 3, page number 21 to 23, and learn and write dictation words. You need to learn and write question answer number 13. Now let's read the dictation words. Pulse, beating, blood vessel, transported, ventricle, artery, veins, wall, circulation, muscular, pressure, squeeze, plasma, platelets, hemoglobin, bone marrow, antibodies, clotting, hormones, fibrinogen, hemophilia, anemia, thrombosis, pacemaker, and failure. Failure is the final word. So this is the key of the question answer. Let me explain you so that you will not be confused later. So question number 13 is how do veins differ from arteries and capillaries in their structure and function? So you need to write down simple uh, definition of three like veins. The function of vein is to carry blood towards the heart, to carry deoxygenated blood, the blood that is um, less in oxygen back to the heart. Okay, arteries carries the oxygen-rich blood from heart towards every part of the body. Capillaries is very important because the exchange of gases occurs here, and then these are the difference of their structure, sorry, function. When we talk about the structure, so here is a diagram I have shown. So just go towards that diagram. You need to draw that diagram in your plain page, and you will write down the difference of structure from that slide and the difference of function from the slide given before this today's lesson. So I hope you understand. There will be no problem. This is a wrap-up slide. So we have discussed two types of circulation, which include the pulmonary circulation and systematic circulation. And there are three types of blood vessels that have almost the same basic structure, and they include arteries, veins, and capillaries. Thank you so much. I hope you understand the lecture and you will enjoy it. But don't forget, make sure that you read the chapter thoroughly, and then it would be really easy for you to understand and clear your concepts. Thank you. Allah Hafiz.